All right, welcome back to the Language of Behavior. As always, I have my wonderful and fantastic co-host Charlie Peck with me, as we're going to be speaking once again to a guest, a once-a-month guest that we have, and we were very strategic, Charlie, about who we're going to bring on this month, and we are so excited to have Lainie Rowell with us. So, Lainie, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, two of my favorite people. How could I say no? I'm delighted to be here.
It's so nice to have you here.
Yes. We love connecting with you. You are a fantastic educator, author, podcaster. You're an international consultant and doing work with a ton of different organizations, which we'll definitely highlight. But I wanted to, since we're on YouTube, Charlie, I wanted to throw up her books. I have these close in hand. So they're phenomenal. And I've had a chance not only to read them, but to endorse and have you also on Aspire to Lead podcast. Charlie, I know you had her on your podcast too.
Yes.
Thriving Educator. And so, yeah, definitely check out Evolving with Gratitude and Bold Gratitude, which is more of kind of like a journaling.
It's a guided journal.
Type.
Yeah, guided journal. And then Josh, you contributed to Evolving with Gratitude. One of the vignettes is from you. So
it's true. I didn't want to start.
I know you don't want to pump your own tires, but let me do it for you. It's a brilliant story. I mean, I'm just going to say really quickly, I actually invited 20 people to tell their stories, and Josh was one who I was like, I already kind of know what I want you to say. Are you okay with that? And he was very kind to be like, yes. I mean, because I already knew so much of the amazing work he was doing. I was like, could you please talk about how you're doing this? And he was very gracious and said yes.
Oh, it was a complete honor and privilege. So yeah, love collaborating with you in any way possible, Lainie. And with that, will you just kind of share a little bit about yourself so folks get to know you a little bit more?
Sure. So, oh my goodness, is this like the 30-second version or the 2-minute version? Let me see if I can do
totally up to you.
Whatever you need to do.
So I'll just for the context of this podcast, I'll just give a little context that I was a psych major and I was planning on being a clinician. I know Charlie has done that work, and as I was doing some of my field hours, I was placed into what is called the non-public school, working with a child with special needs. And that was when I decided that I really wanted to work with kids, and in particular in a school setting, in particular special education. And it actually just so happened that a family friend was a special ed teacher, and she's like, you know what, go make your mistakes in Gen Pop, and then you can move into special ed. And I was like, okay. And I ended up falling in love with how technology can meet the needs of all learners. And so I kind of went down a different path. I worked so I taught kinder, first, second, and sixth grades, and not in that order. I went from kinder to sixth to first grade, loop to group, to open a brand new school. If anyone's ever opened a brand new school, holy cow, that is a job. Like you do, we wear all the hats. And then ended up being invited to a district leadership position and did that for a number of years. And then one day Apple came a-calling and invited me to be a national speaker for them. I did that for a number of years. I also have been a consultant for Google, and I do a ton of work in a different bunch of areas. And I could go on and I can tell you all how I came to be writing books about gratitude, because I don't think anyone explicitly heard gratitude anywhere in there, but let me know if you want me to keep going.
Well, I want everyone to know why you focus on gratitude, because it is crucial. Like all the work that we're doing in our schools and all the work we're doing to improve mental health, and the teaching profession too, by the way, because a lot of teachers are just feeling so overwhelmed. You do need to tell people why you're focusing on gratitude and what it's doing for people.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know. I'll say that never in my life has the thought crossed my mind, gratitude sucks. But I also don't think that it was ever explicitly at the front of my mind. It was just kind of a way to be in relationships. You're thankful and you show your appreciation. But I never really understood how critical it is, how much it has to do with optimizing your happiness, your relationships, and even your performance, until I did this deep dive. And so there was an incident that actually really shook me and it had me reach into the research and explore what are people saying about gratitude. And that was that I was so blessed to be invited to write a book. And I spent 5 years. I had brilliant co-authors. We had this just amazing time writing this book. And the book happened to launch March 13th of 2020. And I don't know if enough time has passed where some people are like, I don't know what that date was, but that was the date that for most of the world we shut down. Some people were already shut down, but the vast majority of us started to shut down on March 13th of 2020. Now, in hindsight, I can go, oh my gosh, there were such bigger things in the world going on. And even at the time, I was terrified and understanding the fragility of life. But I was also thinking, I just spent 5 years writing a book, and my book tour was canceled. Within 72 hours, I lost 3 months of income, because at that point I am speaking as my primary source of income. And it was just really heartbreaking. So it was this very mixed of like, I know there's more important things going on, but at the same time, this really sucks. And I kind of got into a funk, as I think a lot of us did. And then about a week into shutdown, I came across this Laura Kelly Finucci poem, and it's When This Is Over. And the first lines are, when this is over, may we never take for granted handshakes with a stranger, full shelves at a store, the roar of a stadium. You know, I'm not saying it verbatim, and I don't do the poem justice ever, but I was completely captivated by this poem, because it not only was a wake-up call, like, oh my gosh, I was taking so many things for granted prior to March 13th, but also, what am I taking for granted in this moment? Because I didn't have to rush my kids off to school, and we got to do yoga in the living room, and it was hard, but there were some things that were beautiful at the same time. So it was a very like interesting time. I don't know. Does that sound reasonable, that like it could be like really, really hard and also some silver linings too?
Well, it sounds like the world of education.
Yes. Yeah. Good parallel.
It really does.
It's true. And you know what? So many people it resonates with so many people. And anytime you tell someone, what is it that you need right now in this moment? People don't stop to think about that too often, but we really need to slow down when we're feeling that chaos, especially in the system of education and the system of family and everywhere, like slowing down and practicing that gratitude. So Lainie, can you tell people, like, what are you doing with that? And what are some strategies people can use?
Well, so that Laura Kelly Finucci poem really was what triggered it for me. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing these teachers doing heroic things to get into to like their kids. And I'm seeing leaders having to navigate just situations that are really unreasonable. Like, it was just, everyone was in such challenging times. And so I really did turn to the research on gratitude and how can we use this as a way to not dismiss the bad, not ignore the bad or suppress any bad feelings, but how can we use it to look for the good? And so I really wanted to, and I'm so grateful to like Dr. Robert Emmons, who's kind of the father of the science of gratitude. And he tells a really funny story about like, you know, when you're a social scientist, you tend to pick an emotion and you tend to study it for 15 to 20 years at least. And so like when you're in your postgraduate work, it's like, well, pick your emotion. And he's like, gratitude was the one left. And so I like work on gratitude. And so being like, he's the one that comes through with all these breakthroughs of like, how can we actually operationalize gratitude? And so he's done some tremendous work. I stand on his shoulders for sure. What I really focus on to try and make it super practical is thinking about like, what are the two ways, like, what are the two things that really get in the way of our happiness, that get in the way of our relationships, and they get in the way of our, you know, peak performance. And so one of them is our negativity bias. And I know you both are very familiar with this concept, and I'm guessing some of your listeners are too, but we are hardwired for survival, not happiness. And I think that's something that we maybe need to hear over and over again. We are not designed for happiness. We are designed for survival. And so our brain is always looking for threats. And so that's why we always notice the bad way more than we notice the good. And so when we cultivate a grateful disposition, when we train ourselves to look for that good, we start to notice it. And then that makes us happier. We notice it in the people around us, and that's going to make those relationships stronger. And so that's one of the ways, is really trying to help people understand that the reason we want to cultivate a grateful disposition is going to help us overcome that negativity bias. And then the other thing is that hedonic treadmill. Again, I know you guys are familiar with this, but in case some of your listeners aren't, we all have that set point of happiness, right? And so if you think of it like on a scale of 1 to 10, like maybe you're a 4, maybe you're a 6. And what Dr. Emmons' research showed that if you cultivate a grateful disposition, you can actually up your level of happiness, your set point, up to 25%. So if you're a 6, you can get to an 8.5. Is my math right? Did I do that right?
No one's going to dispute you, Lainie.
Not a mathematician here. So because the reason that we have this set point, or the reason that we stay at this set point, is we just get used to the good in our lives, right? We don't even notice it anymore. And so there's a good side to that, because if something bad happens, we will actually get back up to where we were before. So if we were a 6, something bad happens, we drop to a 3, we're gonna resume 6. But we can actually just increase that set point of happiness by practicing gratitude, by cultivating that grateful disposition. And so the reason that I wrote Evolving with Gratitude, and why I asked Josh and other people, and Charlie, if I had known you at the time, I would have been hitting you up for a story too.
Yeah,
but the reason that I wrote that book is that I wanted to share what I had learned about the science, why this is important, how it can be practiced, and that there is no one size all for practicing. I think sometimes people opt out of gratitude because they're like, I don't want to do a 3 things list. Okay, don't do a 3 things list. And there's a ton of other practices. And that was why I wrote the other book, Bold Gratitude, which is the guided journal, because there's like so many practices. But the heart of Evolving with Gratitude, and I'm not just saying this because Josh was here, is those stories where educators talk about, this is what gratitude looks like in my classroom. This is what gratitude looks like in my learning community. And that has been one of to me, the things I'm proudest of in that book, is that I stepped aside and I shined the light on other people. And I've had people say that they keep Evolving with Gratitude by their bedside to reread the stories, because they need that inspiration. They need to hear this story of when things was really hard, they could find a way to give that gratitude to appear. And, I get into really practical ways of like, the praise to correction ratio. I can get into that if you want, but I feel like I'm talking too much. So I'm going to.
No, we want to know what those practical strategies are. People are like, how do I do that, Lainie? Keep going. Give people a few. I think people want to walk away with a couple of those at least.
Sure. So I like to talk about the praise to correction ratio, and praise being a form of gratitude. And I want to be super clear. I'm not talking about praise in the vapid praise, like great job, and maybe not even fully meaning it. Not to be manipulative, but a genuine, authentic, specific recognition of the good in someone else. And the researchers have done the work to say, well, how much in a situation where we want to have a healthy relationship, how much praise to correction should there be? And so I will often ask people, like, what do you think the ratio is? And I will get people who say like 20-1 or 1-1 or anything like that. The experts are not in 100% agreement, but the range tends to be 6-1, 5-1, 4-1. So I was taught in my psych program 6-1. So 6, I see the good in you, very specific and authentic. For everyone, hey, we could work on this. And you'll even hear, like, I don't know if you two are familiar with the Gottmans, but they do this. Yeah. So they're like the relationship experts. So they study the longevity in healthy relationships. They talk a lot about marriage, and they'll even say in your marriage, it should be 5-1. And if you think like, well, obviously that's like not hard. I bet if anyone listening is in a relationship with someone and they were to actually track what is their praise to correction ratio, I'm going to say, me too. Like, it's not what you think it is. Again, that negativity bias kicks in and we tend to notice it. So my practical for educators, whether you're a leader and we're talking about working with your teachers, or we're talking about a teacher working with kids, is maybe just pick one person who is challenging you. And I think we all have this person, right? The person who you're like, I'm going to get through this. And you really, like, even just privately track it. Like, please please don't do this on the board, but somewhere private, track this and just be like noticing every time you give them specific, authentic praise versus constructive feedback. Now, I want to be super clear. The praise to correction ratio is deliberately not a 100-to-1 or, all praise and no feedback. We are in the business of continuous improvement. We want to improve. But what we find is that when we have that praise correction ratio correct, sounds funny, that's when we actually see people listening to our feedback because they know we see the good in them. They know that we specifically, authentically recognize this is good about you. And so if you're telling me I should work on this, I think I'm going to listen to that. Way better chance.
You know what I love about that is that, people could easily say positive versus negative or praise versus saying no, because we hear that in some like parenting practices and stuff. But this is very specific to education too. Like we're going to give feedback. So, and as leaders, Josh, I know you can speak to this as a leader in a school building too. How important it is to know that you can have corrective behavior. Like you can talk about that. There's just a way to go about it. But if you match it with this, it's very tangible. It's something you could actually do. How would you use it, Josh? What do you think?
No, the first thing that came to mind was if you looked at tracking it with your students, your frequent flyer, if you want to call it that, you probably are saying a lot of negative things within a class period and you don't even realize it without saying potentially any sort of praise to that student. But then on the flip side, as far as being a leader to your teachers, sometimes you may only see that staff member when you are making a correction and you're doing that over and over and over the year, where when they see you, now they're already starting to feel some anxiety and some negative feelings because they know that you're probably there only to correct them.
Yeah, that's good. Do you talk to leaders about this, Lainie? Like, do you get them in a room and say, listen, this is what needs to change. And you're going to give them 6 things to praise them for. And then you're going to say, but you also need to do this. So how do you approach that? That's kind of difficult sometimes.
I do. I think we have to remind people that, and anything I say, I'm constantly relearning these lessons myself. So please don't think that if I say something, I've mastered it necessarily. I feel like we're all works in progress. We're all working on this our whole lives. But I think that adults, I know that adults have emotions just like kids have emotions. Adults are better at hiding it typically. And we can all think of some who are not good at hiding it, but generally speaking, and we have to remember that they need this just as much as the kids do. And I actually do share the Gottman research about do this in your relationship, do this, with your significant other, with your partner, with your kids at home, with your own biological children, your adopted children, whoever you have in the house, this should be something that you're doing with them too. So pick the relationship that maybe would make the most sense for you to try this out on, whether it's a personal relationship, a professional relationship, and just get in the habit of it. And then start to, if nothing else, this is such the important thing. And this is the most important thing when it comes to gratitude and so many things, is just notice. It is so easy to lead a distracted life. We have to start noticing. Notice the good in your peers. Notice the good in the kids. Notice the good out in the world. I think the 3 of us spend a lot of time at airports, if I'm not mistaken. Not the hub of happiness, not the place that people go to. I can't wait to get to the airport and spend some quality time with people who are in a very stressful situation. Yeah. So one of my things that I do personally as a goal is when I'm at an airport, I carry these little, they're called thoughtfuls, and they're just tiny little cards. And I just write, they have a little quote in them, and I just write a little message, and then I hand it to the person who checks me out at the food station in the food court. Thank you for doing a great job. Because I know what happens. They have interacted with a lot of faces, a lot of emotions, a lot of people coming at them who are stressed. And I just want them to know that I appreciate that they are here to give me food so I can be nourished as I get onto my flight and go to my next destination. So I'm just trying to think of this is my suggestion to other people, is just find the one place in your life you can start it and then spread it out to other contexts, other situations.
Yeah. Well, this is such a timely topic right now as we're getting into 2025 and folks are doing a lot of reflection, in their own lives, but then also within education. As I said before, I mean, these two books are a must-have. I really feel like this really describes gratitude, goes into the why, some of the data, that kind of stuff, with the stories too. But then if you're looking to activate and do something about the gratitude journey, you need to make sure that you get bold gratitude so that you can get the journal. And there's all kinds of stuff in there as far as ways to write in it. You can doodle in it. I mean, there's so many activities in there also.
And I'm just going to disclose something, and Charlie and Josh, feel free to disagree, but it's a secret. You don't actually make a lot of money writing books. Like, I don't know if maybe you guys have had different experiences, but I hate to break it to you. Write a book because you will fall in love with a topic that you want to learn more about. And that's what happened with me and gratitude. And the reason that I didn't stop with Evolving with Gratitude, and that I went on to do Bold Gratitude with Allison Liu, who is a tremendously talented designer, is I really wanted to universally design a guided gratitude journal that people could not only use personally, but they could bring into their classroom, into the workplace, because all of these practices can be done individually. And I encourage you to do that, but they can also be done in a community of learners, in a community of educators. So it's been super fun.
No, I totally agree with you. And you know what I love about that book too, the gratitude journal, is there's so many leaders who are looking to do some kind of book study. And I said, why don't you do something like this? I mean, it truly is for mental health. It's interactive. It gets them talking. It's different. Yeah. So I really do, if anyone's listening and needs to do a book study, I really think they need to get this gratitude journal. I think it's awesome. And you also need to tell us about Thrive Global. I know there's a lot you're doing with Thrive Global too.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So this was a really fun thing, as you know, as I feel like I've returned to my roots of psychology, but through the lens of education, and also looking for the universals. Like, what are the things that are critical to us thriving as humans in all capacity? Like, not, you know, obviously educator at heart, but you know, what's happening in the workplace and what's happening in these different contexts. So I was invited to be a contributor for Ariana Huffington's Thrive Global. It has been such a blessing. Shout out to Stacy Ross Cohen, who's the one who recommended me. And it's been really fun because Thrive Global, for those who are not familiar with it, is Thrive, obviously. And it's really about how do we balance well-being and productivity. So it's not like, you know, we should all just like meditate for 5 hours and not do anything. It's like, how do we do these micro moves so that we can be healthy and also be, you know, high performing and doing our best. And so it's been a true gift because of that opportunity, that platform. I've been able to interview some people who have inspired me. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to name drop, or maybe you guys will forgive me for this cringy moment, but like Dr. Laurie Santos, right, is the teacher of the most popular course at Yale. They've changed the name a couple of times, but it's basically the science of happiness, the science of well-being. And she is the host of the Happiness Lab podcast. I have idolized this woman for years. I remember, well, this will sound like another name drop, but I'm actually really good friends with Katie Novak. And we were playing a like get to know you game. And she asked a group of us the question, like, if you could have dinner with anyone, who would you have dinner with? And I said, Laurie Santos. And no shade to Laurie, but no one in the room knew who she was. And I was like, but she's Laurie Santos. And so when I reached out to her to feature her on Thrive and say, I want to get what you're sharing with the Yale students and what you're sharing on the Happiness Lab out to, you know, the Thrive readers and also the Evolving with Gratitude podcast listeners. And she said, yes. I can tell you exactly where I was. It was 9:14. I was at Fountain Valley High School. My son's soccer game was like 20 minutes from starting. And I checked my email and there it was. And I was just like, I get to talk to Laurie Santos. And then, I mean, like, I am a total nerd. I just got to do an interview with Angela Duckworth. That was like a year in the making. And just a little side note on that, because I think people sometimes think these things just, you know, land in your lap. And I really was very persistent. Not, you know, Angela Duckworth called me gritty. Like, hello.
Great. That is awesome. I know if you know who she is, that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Lainie, you had talked about the Evolving with Gratitude podcast. Obviously, that's an additional resource for folks if they want more information on this topic. Will you just share a little bit about that wonderful podcast of yours?
Why, thank you. So what I've been doing for the last year and a half is I have been taking the interviews that I get to do with people and some of my own stuff that I do solo. And I've done it so it's like, well, you could listen to the interview on the Evolving with Gratitude podcast, or you could read the article on Thrive Global. And it's kind of, again, UDL is very important to me. Universal Design for Learning is a huge part of my background. Even working for Apple, Universal Design for Learning was a part of that. And so that was something I was like, I can do these two things together, make it so that it's more accessible, try and remove some barriers so people can get access to these brilliant, brilliant people. And I've had the pleasure of having both of you on the Evolving with Gratitude podcast. So very, very grateful for that and your wisdom. And I've been listening to your episodes. You guys are awesome. I'm so glad you're doing this. I want the book in my hand. When is that happening? When do I get to hold the language of behavior?
It's with the editor right now and in final edit. So it's coming out really soon, like within a month. And right now it's January. So it's coming out in February. I know we're excited. We're excited to provide a framework and tools to people who really need it right now. Right, Josh?
Yes. And for those who are interested in learning more information, we're going to be doing a whole bunch of different things in regards to showcasing the cover and doing a reveal. And then also once we land on a date, which we promise is coming up soon, we'll share that out. But if you want more information, there's a link in the show notes, or for those who are watching on YouTube, there's the link on the screen for pre-sale information. We're super excited about the resource. And we're also super excited to see Lainie in person, hopefully July 2025. Lainie, will you share a little bit about this brilliant conference that you're a part of?
Yes. So I've been part of this conference for years. It is the world's longest acronym. So I'm going to try and get it. It's the California, they say CA, MTSS, Multi-Tiered System of Support, PLI, Professional Learning Institute. I mean, talk about someone got paid by the letter, right?
Are we going to be quizzed?
But it is a brilliant conference. CA, MTSS, PLI. It happens in Anaheim, California in July, and it brings together all the people in all the different roles. We've got leaders, classroom educators, counselors, psychologists. We have all the different roles represented. And it's really bringing together what we know are the best practices, right? So we're going to have sessions on SEL, UDL, there's academic sessions. And what I am like over the moon about, because I've been doing this conference for so many years, and I get to bring Josh and Charlie in. And so they're each going to be doing a pre-conference, very excited. And then I don't know if it's because I pulled the friend card or what, but we also get them for a session in the general conference, the afternoon of day one. So I am beyond excited. I should know the date off the top of my head, but I don't. But I'm hoping you guys could. Do you have it, Josh?
I do. I just have to push a couple buttons here, but I've got it as July 21st and 22nd.
I just booked my flight. Yeah, so it's right top of line there. I'm so excited. And what I love about the pre-conference is that you get to spend several hours just diving deeply into topics, because so many times in the feedback form for an hour, like I wish I had more time. So this gives us that much more time with your audience. And then Josh and I are coming together later to do ours together about the language and behavior. I cannot wait. It's just neat. It'll be great to be there. It really is a great conference. So if can anybody go to this? If they're in Orange County or anybody?
It's not just a California conference. I mean, it is CA, does stand for California, but we have people from all over come. And so I hope people will check it out. I have already warned both Josh and Charlie that I will be hugging them because I have not met them I've known both of them for a long time, but I have not hugged either of them yet. And I'm very much looking forward to some in-person hang time.
For sure. It's going to better our mental health during that time over in California. And we'll make sure that the link is in the show notes for folks to check that out, and then also join us in beautiful California. And we can't wait to see Lainie and so many fantastic educators out that way in July. And then Lainie, for those who want to learn more about what you do, maybe have you come and speak. I know that you support in so many different ways. We've been putting up your website on the screen for folks, but outside of your website, is there any way that they can connect with you or reach out and get a hold of you?
I think aside from my name being a spelling test, Lainie Rowell across everything is pretty much it. So I am on Instagram, Twitter, X, I don't care what you call it, LinkedIn. I don't spend as much time on Facebook, and I haven't joined any others yet. I'm, for my own mental health, trying to find a balance. But basically, I mean, even LainieRowell@gmail.com, just email me.
Yep.
But Lainie Rowell across the web. And I really would love to connect with folks. And I've got a ton of free resources on my website, just like Josh and Charlie do. Like, this is the thing about, I think the three of us have in common. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but we care so much about our topics. We care so much about this work. It's not about making money. We just want people to have access to it. So we give a bunch of it away for free on our website. And I would love for people to check out the free resources, some really fun stuff. And I just added a bunch. So
yeah, awesome. I noticed that too. And it's really clear on your website. Like, you've got everything's laid out well. If they know what they want from you, they know how to get it easily. So it's great. And it really is such a pleasure connecting with you and like the three of us. And it's just nice to have good people in your life, you know?
It is. I'm looking forward to the selfie we will take in July.
Yes. It'd be awesome.
Yes.
All right. Real quick, before we end the conversation, if you want more information from Charlie Peck, head over to thrivingeducator.org. You can do the same over at my website, joshsamber.com. We love questions to answer for future episodes. So we'll have this bit.ly, it's LOB questions, it's language of behavior. And we take those questions and answer them on the podcast for you, because we want real world things that are going on in the classroom, in the building. And so that way we can make sure that we're giving the resources available and necessary for you to thrive in your educational community. So with that, Lainie, thank you so much again. You are such a dear friend, someone that's doing phenomenal work all over the country. And we are just so honored to have you on this episode with us.
I'm honored to call you both friends, and thank you for all the work you do. You're really having a huge impact on me and so many others.
Thank you so much, truly.